Hey guys, it's Jessica here. As you guys all know, the Philippines celebrates its Buwan ng Wika this month. And I know it's a little bit late, it's already the end of August, but I still did want to make a video celebrating this month because it's a month where we celebrate and promote the national language of the Philippines, Filipino. So in today's video, I did want to talk about my relationship with the Filipino language and my history with it. And also, I'm going to be answering some concerns and questions that you guys have been constantly bringing up on my channel, which has to do with my poor Tagalog. I actually learned about Buwan ng Wika when I first came to the Philippines in my early days here in the Philippines because in my school in Bacolod, when I was in elementary, every August there would be a week where we had to wear Filipino national attire instead of uniforms, and we would sometimes even perform. There would be school festivals where we perform traditional Filipino dances and everything, and I had so much fun. It was a great opportunity for me, I guess, to naturally really immerse myself into this part of Philippine culture. So before anything, let me introduce myself in Filipino. Hi! Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Ako si Jessica. Hindi ko magaling sa Tagalog. Taga Korea ako. Taga Bacolod ako din kasi nakatira ako sa Bacolod for mga 4 ng taon. O yun. Salamat po. I know if you guys have been following my channel for a long time, you would know this, but for those who are new to my channel, I do think that it's necessary that I mention this. In order for me to answer the question of why am I not fluent in Tagalog yet? In order for me to answer this, I need to go back to the time when I first came to the Philippines. So I first came to the Philippines in 2009 to learn English. So the total of years I stayed in Bacolod was around 5 years. So the language they speak in Bacolod is not Tagalog. They speak Hiligaynon. I know for the longest time I've been calling it Ilonggo because that's how I remember calling it when I was in Bacolod, even among with my friends. But the proper way to call the language they speak in Bacolod is Hiligaynon, guys. Hiligaynon. So when I first went to Bacolod and I heard people speaking in Hiligaynon, I thought that was the Filipino language. You know, I was too young to realize that the Philippines actually has 120 different languages. I just thought Bacolod is the Philippines. That's what I thought in the beginning, and it was only later when I had to take Filipino classes in school that, oh, so Filipino is the national language and Hiligaynon is not. But then it was very easy for me to adapt Hiligaynon because I was young, and also my friends would speak to me in Hiligaynon. And I remember I would also respond in Hiligaynon by the time. So I did understand Hiligaynon and spoke conversational Hiligaynon when I was in Bacolod. I never really made an effort to learn the language. It just came to me naturally. The language that I really made an effort on to learn is really English because, as I told you, I was also not fluent in English. So in a place where it was even hard for me to catch up with English, learning Hiligaynon plus Tagalog, that was too much for me. So I really focused on English by that time, and that continued even when I moved to Luzon, in the area where people spoke in Tagalog. First of all, I also have to admit the fact that in my school, everyone was speaking in English, unlike the school in La Salle, where they still spoke a lot of, Hiligaynon. That's why I really wasn't able to make the time and effort to learn Tagalog consciously. But still, I'm living in the Philippines, so obviously I hear the conversational Tagalog along the way, and eventually I was able to understand all of them. And the only time when I realized that I really had to speak Tagalog and learn Tagalog was after my high school graduation, and that's 3 years ago. So that was the time I started, consuming lots of different Filipino media just so I can familiarize myself with the language, so I also don't forget, because I was in Korea, so I was already forgetting Filipino and it was really tough. But now I'm back in the Philippines and I am still ing in the process of learning Tagalog. So I would say that I'm like the living representation that shows the diversity of the Philippines in terms of the language. Because as I said, there are many different languages in the Philippines, and I'm pretty sure there are people who face kind of the similar problem as me, where their first language isn't necessarily the official languages of the Philippines, English or Filipino. So that would be the answer that I would give when you ask me why I cannot speak in Tagalog fluently yet, but I know that it might be an excuse. I still had enough time to learn Tagalog, but I would say I was subconsciously affected by the social dilemma here in the Philippines that it's okay to just know how to speak in English. And I think that's one of the biggest merit that the Philippines has as a country, because it is really not easy to find a country where most of the people there speak very fluent English. But I feel like because of this notion, there is also the voice and opinion that the Filipino language is now slowly dying. We're afraid that the Filipino national language will really eventually not get any attention, because nowadays more and more kids are being raised with English as their primary language. So of course I'm not saying this as an excuse that I don't have to learn Filipino, because it is acceptable for me to just speak English in the Philippines. I still stand firmly with the idea that I have to always work harder on learning Filipino, because still I know majority of the people in the Philippines are more used to their own languages in their own regions, either that be Tagalog, Hiligaynon. So if I don't know Filipino, then the possibility for me to communicate with more amazing people out there in the Philippines is gone. I know a lot of you guys have been asking this question and leaving lots of comments that I should switch to speaking in Filipino in my videos, because that's always better. I do think that the Filipino language is very deep and beautiful. Again, I know every language evolves and it always reborns into a new form and shape depending on the current social atmosphere. And now we're living in the world where social media is literally part of our souls. So I know the Filipino language also transforms. There are a lot of new terms, right? New slangs and all of that. So now Filipino language kind of seems very casual. But if you take a deeper look into the language and read those classic Filipino literatures or Filipino poems, I get so shocked. So I started my Filipino lesson with a tutor a few months ago, although I had to stop recently because I went to Korea. We actually looked at different Filipino poems and wow, ang lalim! So beautiful. I remember in high school when I got to learn about some Filipino literatures and deep Tagalog, the world of deep Tagalog, I was so impressed and how beautifully the words were put together. It just sounds so nice. It also reminded me of Korean, how in Korean language there are so many things that cannot be replaced in English, where like you can kind of translate, but it just doesn't do it justice. Like there's so many words like that in Filipino, same in Korean. And that kind of Filipino is the kind of Filipino I would like to speak. I do not want my broken Filipino to sound like something that's just cute to see, because my Tagalog really is in a form where it's just not it. And another reason would be that because my Filipino isn't fluent, I won't be able to deliver a message as clearly as I would if I spoke in English. And I love talking. Literally in most of my videos, it's just me talking. So it's very important that I am able to convey the message very well to you guys. And I know by this point, you might also misunderstand that I am trying to give you an excuse to just keep on speaking in English. But again, I'm really learning. And I'm feeling that so much nowadays, which is also the reason why I'm making this video. I've been shooting episodes for Trabajo Season 2. Trabajo is a series that I made here on my channel where I try out different jobs here in the Philippines. So during Trabajo shooting, I need to directly communicate with my boss or my co-worker of the day, because he or she has to teach me all the work. And the recent shooting I did, the kuya who was teaching me, he was more comfortable in speaking in Filipino, obviously, than in English. That means I needed to speak in Filipino as much as possible so, we can communicate better. But, my Tagalog is so bad that I keep mixing it with English and I sound so konyo. I hate it. I know I really hate it, but I still tried. So I was just trying my best. And because he was able to see that I was trying my best, he was also trying his best to speak in English. And I just felt so bad, guys, because, you're not obligated to speak in English, I am obligated to speak in Filipino. for me, I felt so bad and embarrassed. Hence the reason why, again, I got motivated. Wow, I should really improve on my Tagalog. Although I know I am slowly improving, I can also feel it. I can understand more. Language, I would say, is one of the most precious assets a country can have. And in the Philippines, they have so many of it. And although I know that it is the government's job to preserve and protect those languages that may have been abandoned by its people, at the same time, I think there's a need for us individuals as members of the Philippine society to stay passionate about these topics. So I guess that was it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and please share your thoughts on this topic in the comments down below because I would love to know your thoughts. And this video, at the end of the day, is a conversation starter. Thank you guys for watching this video, and happy Buwan ng Wika! Bye!